Introduction. The Whispering Forest. Deep in the heart of an unmarked wilderness lies a forest untouched by time. A place where silence speaks louder than words and shadows seem to breathe. 5 friends, Sarah, Eric, Jake, Lily, and Mark, seeking adventure, stumble upon its ancient secrets, drawn by whispers of an untouched escape from the modern world. But what begins as a celebration soon turns into a descent into the unknown, where the forest itself seems alive, watching, waiting, feeding. As the sun fades and the whispers grow louder, the group realizes that this isn't just a forest. It's a living, breathing entity, holding memories far older than their own. And it knows them, better than they know themselves. Step into the whispering forest, where every step reveals a truth you're not ready to face, and where the greatest challenge isn't survival. It's escaping with your soul. Section 1. Where the story begins. A group of 5 friends embarks on a weekend hiking trip to celebrate one member's recent job promotion. 5 close friends, Sarah, Eric, Jake, Lily, and Mark, set out on a long-anticipated hiking trip to commemorate Eric's recent promotion. They laugh and chat as they pack their gear into a beaten-up SUV, excited to leave behind the stress of their daily lives for a weekend of fresh air and adventure. Each friend brings a unique dynamic to the group. Sarah, the thoughtful planner. Jake, the carefree jokester. Lily, the empathetic soul. Mark, the quiet observer. And Eric, the ambitious achiever. Their camaraderie is evident as they tease Eric about treating everyone to dinner after their trip. Spirits are high as they venture into the unknown, blissfully unaware of the unsettling journey that awaits. The forest they choose is remote, recommended by an old ranger who cryptically mentions it's untouched by time. At a roadside diner, the group encounters an elderly forest ranger sitting alone at a corner table. Intrigued by their talk of adventure, he suggests a lesser-known forest nearby, describing it as untouched by time and perfect for escaping the world. His gravelly voice and vague warnings. The forest isn't like others. It's old, and it remembers, linger in the air long after they thank him and leave. The group laughs it off as part of his eccentric charm, deciding it adds to the allure of their chosen destination. The forest is not on any maps, and their GPS stops working as they approach it, but the group dismisses it as part of the adventure. As they near the forest's edge, the roads become narrower, and their GPS begins to glitch. Directions on their phones loop back to previous locations or display nonsensical routes. They joke about being off the grid as Mark pulls out an old-school compass to lead the way. The air grows cooler, and dense trees close in around them. They come across an unmarked dirt path that seems to invite them forward, the canopy above creating an eerie tunnel-like effect. It's all part of the fun, Eric says, grinning, as they drive deeper into the wilderness. The forest is unnaturally quiet. No birds, insects, or wind. Just the sound of their footsteps when they step out of the car. The silence strikes them immediately. No chirping birds, no rustling leaves, not even the hum of insects. The quiet feels heavy, as if the forest is holding its breath. Their voices sound oddly muffled, and even the crunch of leaves beneath their boots seems muted. Jake tries to make light of the situation, joking, "Guess even the animals need a break." But the unease is palpable as Sarah murmurs, "It feels too quiet." Despite the tension, they push forward, brushing off the unnatural stillness as an overactive imagination. Section 2. Foreshadowing. Sarah mentions feeling like the trees are watching them, which the group laughs off. As the group ventures deeper into the forest, Sarah becomes increasingly uneasy. She stops in her tracks, staring at the towering trees surrounding them. "Doesn't it feel like we're being watched?" she asks, her voice tinged with uncertainty. The others glance around but see nothing out of the ordinary. Jake, always quick with a joke, replies, "Yes, Sarah, totally. The trees probably have eyes." The group bursts into nervous laughter, brushing off her comment as paranoia. But Sarah remains silent, unable to shake the feeling that something unseen is observing their every move. They notice strange carvings on the trees, resembling ancient symbols, but none of them can identify their origin. A few hours into their hike, Lily spots something unusual on the bark of a nearby tree. "Hey, look at this," she says, pointing to a series of strange carvings etched deeply into the wood. The others gather around, examining the symbols, intricate patterns of spirals, intersecting lines, and figures that resemble animals or people. Looks like some kind of ancient writing, Mark suggests, snapping a photo on his phone. Eric squints at the carvings, frowning. Weird. They don't look like anything I've seen before. Not even runes or hieroglyphs. They move on, but the carvings appear more frequently as they progress, as if the forest itself is marking their path. Section 3. Inciting Incident. The whispers begin. As night falls, the group sets up camp near a small clearing surrounded by towering trees. The sun dips below the horizon, casting long shadows that stretch across the forest floor. The group sets up their tents in a small clearing, their campfire crackling softly as it illuminates their faces. The towering trees encircle them like silent sentinels, their dark forms blending into the encroaching night. "This is perfect," Jake says, throwing an arm around Eric. Promotion-worthy camping vibes. Despite the playful mood, Sarah's eyes linger on the shadows between the trees, unease etched on her face. While sitting around the campfire, they begin hearing faint whispers that seem to come from the forest. As the group eats and exchanges stories around the fire, a faint sound carries through the air. At first, it seems like the rustling of leaves, but it grows distinct, a soft murmuring, like distant voices. "Did you hear that?" Lily asks, breaking the laughter. The group falls silent, straining to listen. The whispers are barely audible, but they're there, weaving through the stillness of the forest. Jake dismisses it with a shrug. "Probably the wind," he says, though there is no breeze. The whispers grow louder, and the group realizes the voices are calling their names. Minutes later, the whispers intensify, becoming clearer. Each friend hears their own name, called softly but distinctly, as if from deep within the trees. "No way," Mark mutters, glancing nervously at the others. Sarah's hand trembles as she grips her flashlight. "They're calling us," she whispers, her voice cracking. The group exchanges uneasy glances, unsure whether to laugh or panic. The fire flickers as though responding to the eerie sound, casting elongated shadows around them. Some members dismiss it as a prank, but Sarah insists it feels personal. Jake tries to lighten the mood, suggesting it's someone pulling a prank. "Maybe it's that old ranger messing with us," he jokes half-heartedly. But Sarah shakes her head, her voice firm. "It's not random. It knows things about us." The group falls silent as she continues. "When it called my name, it wasn't just saying it. It was like it knew me." Her words hang heavy in the air, unsettling even the skeptics. Section 4. The First Strange Encounter. One friend, Eric, claims to hear his late grandmother's voice in the whispers, urging him to come closer. Eric suddenly stiffens, his eyes darting toward the forest. "Did you hear that?" he asks, his voice urgent. "It's her, my grandmother." The others turn to him, puzzled. "Eric, your grandma passed away years ago," Lily says gently, but he cuts her off. "I know, but it's her voice calling me. She used to say those exact words. Come closer, Eric." His voice cracks with emotion as he stares into the darkness, the whispers growing louder in his ears. Despite the group's protests, Eric ventures into the forest, only to return moments later, pale and shaken, refusing to talk about what he saw. Eric ignores their protests and steps into the forest, the whispers seeming to guide him. "Eric, wait." Sarah calls, but he disappears into the shadows. The minutes crawl by, each second heavy with tension. When he finally emerges, his face is ashen, and his hands tremble uncontrollably. "What happened?" Jake demands, but Eric shakes his head violently. "Don't ask," he mutters, his eyes hollow. He sits by the fire, refusing to meet anyone's gaze, while the whispers fade into the night, leaving an eerie silence. Section 5. Rising Action. The forest tightens its grip. Over the next day, the group notices the forest seems to be shifting. The morning brings no relief. The group retraces their steps to find the way back, but the forest seems to have changed overnight. Trails that were once clear are now blocked by dense thickets, and new paths appear where none existed before. "I swear we came this way," Lily says, panic creeping into her voice. The trees seem taller and closer, as though the forest is closing in on them. Mark tries to use the compass, but the needle spins aimlessly, refusing to settle. The group begins to realize the forest isn't just alive, it's aware of them. They find items belonging to them scattered in strange places. As they push forward, the group starts finding personal belongings scattered along the path. Sarah's favorite red scarf dangles from a branch, as if placed there deliberately. Eric's water bottle, which he swore was in his backpack, is embedded in the soil at the base of a tree. How is this even possible? Sarah whispers, her voice trembling. It feels like the forest is toying with them, as though it knows their every move. Each discovery sends a chill through the group, eroding their sense of safety. The whispers become more distinct, revealing secrets about the group's past. The whispers return, louder and more personal, weaving through the air like a haunting melody. They no longer just call names. They reveal things the group has never shared with each other. Sarah freezes when she hears, "The creek wasn't your fault," a reference to a childhood accident she's buried deep in her memory. How does it know that?" she stammers. Jake hears whispers mocking his failures, and Lily hears the voice of someone she lost years ago. The forest is peeling back their defenses, exposing their vulnerabilities. Section 6. Division among the group. Tensions rise as some friends want to leave immediately. The group gathers in the clearing, their nerves frayed and tempers short. Sarah insists they need to stay calm and find a way out together, while Jake argues they should start running in any direction to escape. "We're sitting ducks here," he snaps, his voice rising. Mark sides with Jake, while Lily hesitates, torn between logic and fear. The tension thickens as they bicker, their voices echoing through the oppressive silence of the forest. A heated argument reveals hidden resentments among the group. As the argument escalates, the whispers intensify, feeding on the group's insecurities. Mark accuses Sarah of being controlling, while Jake mocks Eric for his indecisiveness. "You always think you know better," Mark shouts at Sarah. "Maybe if you weren't so careless, we wouldn't be stuck here." Eric, already shaken from his encounter, lashes out at Jake for not taking things seriously. The forest seems to thrive on their conflict, its presence pressing in on them. The group splits into two. Unable to reach a consensus, the group divides. Sarah, Eric, and Jake decide to stay at the camp and figure out another plan, while Lily and Mark set off to find help. "This is a mistake," Sarah warns as Lily and Mark walk away. "We'll come back," Lily replies, her voice shaking. The division feels final, as though the forest has succeeded in driving a wedge between them. Section 7. Lily and Mark's discovery. Lily and Mark stumble upon an ancient stone altar. Deep in the forest, Lily and Mark come across a clearing with an ancient stone altar at its center. The altar is covered in moss and carved with the same strange symbols they saw earlier. The air feels heavier here, and the whispers are louder, almost guiding them to the spot. "What is this place?" Lily whispers, running her fingers over the carvings. The altar seems to pulse faintly, as though alive. A carved inscription reads, "The forest remembers." Mark brushes away the moss covering part of the altar, revealing an inscription, "The forest remembers." The words send a chill through both of them, as though the forest is watching their every move. "This isn't natural," Mark says, his voice barely audible. The air around them grows colder, and the trees seem to lean inward, enclosing the clearing. Mark touches the altar, triggering a vision. Against Lily's protests, Mark places his hand on the altar. Instantly, his eyes widen, and his body stiffens. He sees shadowy figures moving through the forest, chanting in a language he doesn't understand. The vision shows an ancient ritual where the forest's power was bound to the altar, trapping the spirits of those who dared to disturb it. When the vision ends, Mark stumbles back, gasping for air. "We need to leave," he says, his voice trembling. "Now." Section 8. Climax. The forest's true nature is revealed. Sarah, Eric, and Jake hear a loud, rhythmic sound, like a heartbeat emanating from the forest. As the night deepens, the forest seems to grow heavier, the air thick with an unexplainable tension. Sarah, Eric, and Jake huddle closer to the dying campfire, their nerves fraying with every passing moment. Suddenly, a rhythmic, pulsating sound breaks the silence, a deep, resonant thump that seems to come from all directions. It's not mechanical or natural. It feels alive, like a massive heartbeat resonating through the ground and the trees. What is that? Jake whispers, his bravado gone as he scans the dark woods. The sound grows louder, almost deafening, as if the forest itself is drawing breath. Sarah clutches her flashlight, her knuckles white. The forest, it's alive, she says in a trembling voice, and for the first time, no one laughs. They realize the forest itself is alive, feeding on their emotions and memories as the rhythmic pounding continues. Sarah notices something chilling. It's louder when we're scared, she observes, her voice barely audible over the sound. Eric nods, his face pale. It's feeding on us, he mutters, his eyes darting nervously to the trees. The forest seems to respond, the whispers returning, this time sharper, clearer, and more invasive. Each whisper pulls at a personal memory, Jake's childhood regret, Sarah's long-buried guilt, Eric's lingering grief. The realization dawns on them simultaneously. The forest isn't just alive. It thrives on their emotions, drawing strength from their fears and vulnerabilities. Jake is drawn into a trance-like state by the whispers, which promise to erase his deepest regret if he stays. Jake's face goes slack as the whispers take on a new tone, seductive and comforting. Jake, you can let it go, a soft voice says, coaxing him forward. All the pain, the regret, it can vanish. His eyes glaze over, and he stands, moving toward the forest edge with slow, mechanical steps. Sarah and Eric shout after him, but he doesn't respond. Jake, stop! Sarah screams, grabbing his arm. He turns to her with tears streaming down his face. They can fix it, he says, his voice breaking. I don't have to feel it anymore. As he pulls away, the whispers grow louder, almost triumphant, urging him deeper into the woods. Section 9. The altar's purpose. Lily and Mark return to warn the others, explaining that the altar binds the forest's power, and destroying it may weaken the forest's hold. Just as Sarah and Eric struggle to pull Jake back, Lily and Mark burst into the clearing, out of breath and visibly shaken. We found something, Lily says, clutching Mark's arm for support. An altar. It's ancient. It's the source. Mark nods grimly. The carvings we saw, they're all over it. I think it binds the forest's power. If we destroy it, we might have a chance to get out. The group exchanges nervous glances, unsure whether to believe them. But as the forest's oppressive presence grows stronger, the choice becomes clear. The altar must be destroyed. However, the forest resists their efforts to regroup, creating illusions to disorient them. As they try to move together toward the altar, the forest lashes out. Thick fog rolls in, obscuring their path and separating the group. Shadows flit through the mist, taking the shapes of loved ones, enemies, and memories meant to confuse and manipulate. Sarah sees her younger self, crying and lost, while Mark hears his father's voice berating him. The illusions twist their perceptions, making it nearly impossible to distinguish reality from the forest's tricks. Stay together, Lily shouts, her voice distant and faint, as if the forest is swallowing her words. Eric vanishes, leaving behind only his journal with frantic entries about the forest. Reading his mind, in the chaos, Eric disappears. Sarah realizes he's gone when she finds his journal lying open near the campfire, its pages filled with frantic, scrawled entries. The words, "It knows me," and "It sees everything," are repeated over and over, alongside cryptic sketches of the forest and the altar. The final entry simply reads, "I'm sorry." Sarah clutches the journal tightly, her tears mixing with the dirt on her hands. "We have to destroy the altar," she says with determination, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. Section 10. Resolution. The escape. The remaining friends decide to destroy the altar despite fears of what might happen. The remaining friends, Sarah, Jake, Lily, and Mark, regroup at the clearing, clutching what supplies they have left. The rhythmic heartbeat of the forest grows louder, resonating with an urgency that makes their skin crawl. If we don't destroy the altar, none of us are getting out of here, Sarah says firmly, gripping Eric's journal. Her resolve seems unshakable, though fear flickers in her eyes. The others exchange hesitant glances, knowing the risk but realizing there's no alternative. Let's end this, Jake says quietly, his usual humor gone. Together, they move toward the altar, their flashlights piercing the oppressive darkness as the forest seems to close in around them. As they approach, the forest fights back, conjuring haunting visions of their loved ones, pleading with them to stop. The altar comes into view, a massive stone structure covered in the same ancient carvings they'd seen earlier. But as they draw closer, the forest unleashes its final defense. Jake freezes as a vision of his late brother appears, begging him to turn back. "You'll lose me again," the figure pleads, its voice trembling. Lily sees her younger sister, sobbing and reaching out to her. Mark hears his father's voice, chastising him for always failing under pressure. Sarah, however, sees no one. Only a reflection of herself, bloodied and broken, whispering, "You can't save them all." The group falters, tears streaming down their faces as the visions become more vivid. "It's not real," Sarah yells, forcing herself forward. "The forest is lying." Her voice cuts through the illusions, giving the others enough strength to take another step. Sarah smashes the altar with a heavy rock, causing the forest to erupt in a deafening roar. Reaching the altar, Sarah grabs a heavy rock from the ground, her hands trembling. The heartbeat of the forest is deafening now, each thud shaking the ground beneath their feet. "This ends now," she says, raising the rock high above her head. As she slams it down, the altar cracks with an ear-splitting roar, and the carvings begin to glow brightly before fading into darkness. The forest reacts violently. Trees sway unnaturally, the ground shakes, and the whispers rise into a chorus of agonized wails. For a moment, it feels as though the entire forest will consume them. Then, silence. Section 11. Aftermath. The whispers stop, and the forest's oppressive atmosphere begins to lift. Trails reappear, leading the group out. The moment the altar shatters, the forest seems to exhale. The oppressive weight in the air lifts, replaced by an eerie calm. The whispers are gone, leaving only the natural sounds of the forest, rustling leaves, distant birdsong, and the gentle sway of trees. Trails that had disappeared now reappear, illuminated by faint moonlight filtering through the canopy. I think it's over," Lily says, her voice trembling. Mark looks toward the newly visible path, relief and exhaustion etched on his face. "Let's get out of here," Jake mutters, his voice hoarse. As they leave, they notice the carvings on the trees have vanished, and the forest looks less menacing. Walking cautiously along the trail, they notice something strange. The carvings on the trees are gone, leaving smooth, untouched bark in their place. The forest, once dark and sinister, now appears ordinary, almost peaceful. "It's like it never happened," Jake says, his voice tinged with unease. "But it did," Sarah replies, clutching Eric's journal tightly. The group exchanges somber glances, each silently mourning what they've lost and what they've learned. The group, now smaller and more somber, reflects on what they've experienced, realizing the forest exposed their fears and secrets to test them. As they reach the edge of the forest, the group pauses, looking back at the dark woods. The weight of their experience hangs heavy in the air. "It wasn't just about escaping," Lily says softly. "The forest, it showed us who we really are." Mark nods, his gaze distant. "It fed on our fears, but maybe it also wanted us to face them." Sarah doesn't speak, flipping through Eric's journal one last time before tucking it into her bag. They step out into the open, the cool night air washing over them like a cleansing wave. Though scarred, they know they've survived something extraordinary, and they'll never be the same. Section 12. Final scene. Weeks later, Sarah opens a letter she received anonymously. Inside is a sketch of the altar and a single line, "The forest never forgets." The camera pans out to show the forest in the distance, seemingly calm but subtly pulsing with life. The scene shifts to a wide aerial view, slowly pulling away from Sarah's apartment. In the distance, the forest appears as a dark patch on the horizon, seemingly tranquil under the soft glow of the moon. But as the camera lingers, subtle movements ripple through the treetops, as if the forest is breathing, alive and aware. A faint, rhythmic sound, like a heartbeat, grows louder, resonating ominously as the screen fades to black. The forest's secrets may lie dormant for now, but its presence lingers, a silent reminder that some places are not meant to be forgotten. And for Sarah and the others, the echoes of its whispers are far from over.